And so, but private settlement, I think, is going to be the key. And so Canton Network provides that private settlement for institutional investors, and hopefully we'll start seeing it in our local market. In this video, I'm going to show you what the Canton coin is and how these institutional investors are using it. And who are these institutional investors? We have Goldman Sachs, Citadel, and ARK Invest. I'm going to show you another market we're not seeing with this coin, how 99 trillion of assets is getting tokenized and it's on the Canton Network, and what this means for the coin. How is it getting burned, and what's the utility behind it? Stay tuned. Canton Network started in 2023, and there was a couple players that started it. There was Deloitte and Vert Capital, and you guys remember Vert Capital from my previous videos with XRP and XDC. So why is this important? In 2023, this was private, so no one could buy it. Only recently did they release a coin to the public in Q4 of 2025. So this is important because recently DTCC, which is massive in the market, worked with them to tokenize some of their assets on the Canton Network. And who is DTCC? DTCC is the Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation. And so these are the folks that facilitate, they're pretty much the middleman for all of your trades from the stock exchange to your local bank account. They provide that peace of mind for both companies because of that 2-day settlement period. They're the ones that help facilitate that. And so they worked with the Canton Network, and they're going to do a subset of these treasuries for 2026. So they started that already. So DTCC has been around for a while, and this is their homepage. And wanted to show you tokenization is one of their very first bullet points. And so the entire market is moving towards tokenization, and it just depends on which network they're going to choose. And so right now they're working with the Canton Network, and this is huge for this type of market because every single trade that's on the trading floor could potentially go through the Canton Network. They raised about $135 million back in June 24, 2025. So they took on debt by Citadel. So they're big people, and Circle. And also, they also work with Global Synchronizer Foundation. And who are these folks? They're with Goldman Sachs, Hong Kong, and Moody. So I talked about Moody with XRP, pretty much rating these assets that are moving on chain. But I'm bringing this up because there's a lot of big players, and there isn't going to be just this one coin that's going to rule them all. It's going to be multiple networks, multiple coins, and I really think XRP, XLM is going to be a tier 1 settlement, and they're going to have these supporting networks like XCC, Canton Network, and HBAR. But one thing about Canton Network that I personally don't like is that it's not ISO 20022 compliant, but it doesn't seem like these institutions seem to care. But we'll see about the regulation that comes in. So the smart contracts, pretty much the code that governs these tokenization, it's called the DAML ledger. And so they're an interoperability protocol. Essentially, it's just code. The contract lives there. And I talked about in the past, it's just code that lives on their network. It's nothing new. Everyone, in my opinion, likes to talk about how theirs is better than the other one. In my opinion, it really just matters if the banks choose you or someone important chooses you, then, they just adopt them. And so feel free to argue with me in the comments, but that's kind of how I see it. Real estate tokenization on the Canton Network. So about 326 trillion, it's global market. If it gets tokenized, they can put it on the contract, the DAML contract. It's just code that lives on there, but Canton provides the privacy. So I think that's part of the reason why institutions like that. And I've talked about that with XDC, where I think privacy is going to be the #1 thing. They want private settlement. So the token gets created through these contracts. They get privacy. Investors are happy. Clearinghouse is happy. And then really the whole point of that is to borrow against it. So it's just the point of the token is to have it on your balance sheet, like Deloitte said, and then pretty much raise capital, borrow against it, and go forth. So really the private settlement is going to matter most for especially like clearinghouses. You don't want the entire world knowing that you placed a trade. And so that makes sense for most people. And that's kind of what I'm trying to focus the most on is like, who's going to tap into the real estate market? I'm not seeing one coin that's going to take over. And so, but private settlement, I think, is going to be the key. And so Canton Network provides that private settlement for institutional investors, and hopefully we'll start seeing it in our local market. But the tokenomics of the Canton Network is a little interesting. So essentially, it's CC is the native token, and they just released it in Q4 of 2025. And they just started tokenizing some of the basically the assets, the DTC security treasuries on the network. So they just started that in 2026. And the whole point of this coin is to manage the network. So when you run the network, you get rewarded as a validator. So app builders are going to be incentivized to use the Canton Network. And if there is already institutional adoption, I think that's going to be a plus for this coin. There isn't a pre-mine, but there is about 37.5 billion in circulating supply. So no, that affects the price. So the more coins that there are in the market, that's going to affect the price. 2.5 billion annual burn. We got about 500 plus validators and then super validators. So super validators get more of the reward than validators. And to be a validator, I have to double check, but you have to register and then also put up the capital. Users pay the fees. So when you use the network, you're going to pay the coin, the CC coin. Coin gets burned, but then some of the coin gets minted, and that gets paid to the validators and people who use the network. Yeah, the validators earn. So really, the whole to burn the token creates a supply shortage, which pushes up the price. And the more activity that's on the network, like clearinghouses, it's going to create more of a deflationary effect. But we're going to be watching that, and really what I'm going to be focused on with this coin is app providers, because that's kind of where I see most of these coins going. Whoever is going to use that network and wherever that capital is flowing, and the more providers that are on the network, that's the coin that I want to focus on.